a codified group of vast techniques which, when employed artfully, create emotional engagement in a film, a video game, a TV episode, an advertisement, even a photograph, in a piece of architecture. So I'll be a little improvisational here and talk about architecture in just a moment, because I would like to show the cross-disciplinary nature of some of these emotioneering techniques. But in any case, I think that your audience will get the idea. Now, I think actually before I go into other art forms like architecture, etc., let me just tell you a little bit more about emotioneering. What I'm talking about here is not art. I'm talking about craft. I could teach these techniques for creating empathy to you or to anyone, and they can immediately do an amazing job with any character that they create in their fiction or their screenwriting or their short stories, lots of applications, their video games. But it would be very well crafted. But to turn these techniques into art, then we need one more ingredient. And the extra ingredient is the person listening to this audio recording. That is you, the listener, the artist, the creator. The artist has to take his or her personal experience, which is vast and deep and rich and varied, and his or her imagination, which is vast and deep and rich, and the very simple or the very complex things that the creator wants to communicate, the insights, the vision, the new reality, maybe the humor, the irony, or combinations of all of those things, and take all of those things and apply them to the craft and elevate the craft to the level of art. So the X factor is you, the listener. And you can't take the listener, you can't take the creator out of the equation. So emotioneering would never be able to be applied by a computer to create great art. This gets us into the magic level. Now we get into the spiritual component, which I normally talk about a little bit in my classes, but not as much as I would really like to. A lot of cultures, such as the Australian Aborigines or the Navajo. Let's talk about the Navajo Indians for a moment. Those of you who are listening might want to Google Navajo sand paintings and take a look at these beautiful sand paintings by the Navajo Indians. Just Google them and learn a little bit about them. When a person is physically ill among the Navajo, or when a person is emotionally distraught, then the shaman will conduct a healing ceremony, which they call a way, W-A-Y. And this may last several days, and it has various rituals and chants and sand paintings. They'll do a beautiful painting and have the person sit in the middle of it. Well, what are these paintings of? They're paintings, and what are these chants of? They're retelling the creation myth, the very complex creation myth, or a piece of it from the Navajo creation story. Because the idea, which is a little bit like our own biblical story, is that the world, when it was created, was perfect. And the idea is that the person who is emotionally distraught is out of alignment with the perfection around him, and out of alignment with the perfection within him. Now, doesn't that sound like Buddhism or Taoism?
Sure.
Or other very evolved spiritual disciplines, and I think certain forms of Christianity and Judaism as well. So that gets to the shamanic aspects of what we're doing as creators. Now, again, I wouldn't talk this way when I'm teaching a screenwriting class, but from what I understand about your audience, they're able to make these connections in a way that perhaps people who are a little bit more prosaic may not be able to.
That's right.
So when I said that there is a magic quality to it, magic may not be the right word. There is a wondrous, awesome quality to it. If there are two things that I find absolutely inexplicable, these are the things. I can take I don't know if you've ever written a movie script or a short story, but let's say you have not. And I could teach you these techniques, and quickly you would write, I could then ask you to write a short story about 5 minutes in a teenage girl's life that changed her life forever. And I would say, make sure that I'd empathize with the girl. And I could teach you these 13 and another 60 techniques for making us empathize. And my God, you would do it, and you would do an amazing job. So, and it would be beautiful and wondrous, and it would be more elevated than the techniques themselves, because the techniques are just craft. So one of the mysteries to me of creation is that you can take techniques which are very logical, like these emotioneering techniques, and teach them to someone, and they can create something which is higher than logic, because the aesthetic wavelength is a higher wavelength than the logical wavelength. That is, if I was to scream at you right now, or we've all been around angry people, there's a vibration, you might say, or an energy that angry people radiate, or hateful people radiate. Hateful people is a very solid, dark energy. Angry people is kind of like a red-hot, abrasive energy. Bored people is kind of a mildly dead energy. And people, little children who are excited, it's a bubbly, frothy, happy energy. We can feel these energies. Well, the energy of aesthetics is way up there. You can stop people in their tracks. Where are you? You're in the Netherlands, right?
Sweden.
You're in Sweden. Okay.
That's right.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
In this cyber world, I never quite know where I am. Well, I was in Amsterdam, where I'm going again, but I was there a couple of years ago. Went to the Van Gogh Museum. Oh my God, the crowds, the lines. People want to go see Van Gogh paintings. So I waited in line, and people are chatting and chatting and chatting and chatting, and then, boom, they stand in front of these amazing paintings and they fall silent. They are stopped in their tracks as the very incredible, complex beauty of these Van Gogh paintings just cuts right through to their heart and soul. And that's the power of aesthetics, so that you can use logical techniques to create something higher than logic that reaches people on all these levels. Don't ask me how it's possible, but it's possible. So I teach writers these techniques that are very logical, and then they create something higher than logic. The other thing is that you can take a look at a beautiful Greek statue from 500 BC, from 2,600 years ago, and it's just as beautiful today as it was 2,600 years ago. How is it possible? And it has the same emotional impact. How can a beautiful thing never exhaust itself and continue to radiate life and beauty and have the same effect? I don't know. How can we put life into things and have it be eternally there? Again, it's a mystery to me. So people who are eager to look for miracles, well, there's two of them right there. And the nature of beauty is to uplift people. So in a way, the reason that I give away all my secrets as a writer and as a teacher of emotioneering is because even though I create my own competition, and trust me, I've competed with my own students on more than one occasion for jobs. By doing so, I'm allowing artists to become those Navajo shamans. And they, by creating beauty, and the word beauty is used a lot in the Navajo curing ceremonies. They talk about how the world was created in beauty. They use the word beauty all the time because the wavelength of beauty uplifts people and brings them into a non-combatant state with the world. Because when you see everything as beautiful, you're not fighting it. And thus disease is thought of fighting something. And when you are emotionally distraught, you're fighting something. So in beauty, you just embrace everything when you're in a state where you see everything as beautiful. Well, that's us. That's what we artists, we creators do. We lift the world up to the level of beauty. Wall-E, Lord of the Rings, which we are going to talk about in a moment. You follow this? Absolutely.
And do you ever feel that there is another level or element beyond these techniques that you've been talking about and describing? Have you ever felt that you've been able to teach someone these techniques and they've applied it to their work or their writing or what have you, and at the end of it is like everything is right in terms of on the paper, so to speak, but something ends up not feeling right with the work. In other words, they're missing maybe a spiritual component. I guess what I'm saying is that could it be applied, but still it might not guarantee work or success, if you know what I mean?
Well, that's, just because a guitarist knows a lot of different ways of a lot of different chords, and because they know a lot of ways of strumming, and just because they know a lot of different finger moves, and just because they know scales, doesn't mean necessarily they're going to be a great composer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of songs. And I think that every artist is always dissatisfied with their own work and trying to improve.
Right.
By the way, and I don't have I've got a bunch of websites, but I don't have a website for this one yet. Just as a hobby, my favorite hobby, and this is going to surprise you, is I like to find painters who no one knows about and make them famous.
Okay.
I actually manage a whole bunch of painters here in America. Los Angeles has this explosive art scene at the moment. For those of you listening on this, we're talking about the end of the year in 2010, and LA right now is in the middle of an art renaissance. And it's a rebirth of surrealism. It's called pop surrealism. But if anybody wants to see some of the artists that I manage, they can Google. I'll just give you a few names. Eric Fortune, Fortune, Eric ERIC Fortune. Just Google his name and see this great artist. There's a woman named Mia. Just type art by Mia, and they'll see another artist who I discovered who's now getting very famous, not just in LA, but around the United States. And I've begun to work now with European and South American artists who are mid-career and bring them to America. People can Google an artist named Diego Gravenis, without spelling it, I can't even do it. Gravinese, DiegoGravenis.com, EricFortune.com, and art-by-mia.com. Just three artists of many. And they can see what I do as a hobby. But be prepared. Your mind is about to get blown. Now, Diego's not a surrealist, but the other two are very much part of this very happening movement in Los Angeles and around the country. Now, what I'd like to do is, by the way, one more thing I didn't say is I think I'm going to take a moment for a shameless plug, because I always forget to do this, a shameless plug for myself, which is I teach my writing class, which has application for writers of all sorts, but I find many other people in the arts, painters and product designers, etc., taking my class as well. And I teach it in Los Angeles, New York, and London, and sometimes people get enough people together to invite me to their cities. I was teaching it in Norway last year, and I might go to Berlin in 2011. We'll see. Wherever, 25 people can get together and bring me in, I can do it. But my website is beyondstructure.com, and anybody interested can take a look. There's many articles there under the article section with great techniques like the ones that I've been offering. And we're doing this in 2010. My next class in 2010 is in Los Angeles on November 6th and 7th. Probably the people listening to this are listening to this weeks or months or years after November 6th and 7th, 2010. But if you check the website, there might be an announcement for another class coming to a city somewhere in the world, maybe one near you. beyondstructure.com. What I'd like to do right now is pause this and ask everybody who is listening to look at the next film clip, which is the one from Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. So I'm going to now analyze that next film clip and then talk a little bit about architecture or product design, and we'll kind of wrap it up because I have to get to Amsterdam. So let's pause it right now, you guys. What I'm about to say will absolutely not make sense unless you see this extraordinary clip with Sam and Frodo from Lord of the Rings.
All right, David, we'll go take a look.
Okay, I'm now going to continue by analyzing this scene. And one thing I want to say, by the way, is that if you were a writer and you were trying to keep all the techniques I'm about to say